Good morning, Western Washington, and happy Tuesday. I'm Matthew Fab with Western Washington Weather, and we've got a lot to talk about today with our offshore flow event about to begin here, with some of those offshore winds already reaching parts of the eastern Puget Sound lowlands and some big contrasts ongoing. So we're going to take a look at the forecast for wind, temperature, and some of the local extremes we're going to see, in addition to the potential for some smoke moving into parts of the area, as well as some of the fires get pretty active today with that offshore flow. So starting with the satellite imagery, you can see lots of fog across parts of northeast Washington, some entrenched smoke in there as well. And then you can see mostly clear across western Washington this morning, a few areas of fog in some of the river valleys, but otherwise a very nice and clear morning, and it's going to be a nice and hot day today, one of the hottest September days we've had in quite a while, in a few years here. So let's take a look at that. Starting here with the alerts, you can see we have a red flag warning in effect for a lot of western Washington, especially areas at higher elevations and the Cascades. And then you can see we have this wind advisory in effect for the eastern lowlands, including the I-90 corridor, the US 2 corridor, and some of the gaps further to the south. If we take a look at this wind advisory here, you can click on it right there, and we will see that is showing east winds of 10 to 20 miles per hour with gusts to 35 to 45 miles per hour expected, isolated gusts to 50 miles per hour in favored areas such as ridge tops and mountain gaps. And this is in effect for the foothills and valleys of the Cascades from Enumclaw northward to the US 2 corridor, and that is until midnight tonight. Gusty winds could blow down unsecured objects, tree limbs could be blown down, and a few power outages may result. Additional details here, just to keep this in mind: wind gusts of 35 to 45 miles per hour can result in tree damage at this time of year due to the presence of leaves on the trees. So that is something to remember, that we haven't had any windstorms to prune the trees or anything like that. So it is going to be there may be a little bit more tree damage out in the foothills because of some of these winds. And then we have that red flag warning in effect as well. East winds gusting up to 45 miles per hour, as low as 25 to 30% humidity. And this combination of moderate breezes, low humidity, and warm temperatures can contribute to rapid rates of spread and downwind spotting on existing fires. If a fire were to begin, air quality may diminish quickly in the surrounding area. And again, winds will be greatest along the gaps on the I-90 and US 2 corridors, as well as around Enumclaw and in the Cowlitz Valley. So those are the areas that we'll watch here in the forecast. Taking a look at the current temperatures, this is 7 a.m. temperatures here. You can see, look at North Bend, 71 degrees, and you can see that getting out to Black Diamond. It's 70 in Black Diamond, but it's 53 here in Federal Way, and 55 in Federal Way, actually, right there. And you can see SeaTac at 57, but 70 in Black Diamond. And why is that happening? Take a look at the wind gusts, and you can see you have these gusty gap winds already beginning here. North Bend gusting to 30 miles per hour, same thing just east of Maple Valley there. But then if you can also tell, if you look at the relative humidity, where those dry gap winds are starting to get out into the area. You can see North Bend, 47% humidity. Same thing, it's really starting to go down here across parts of Black Diamond and Maple Valley, 55%, 53% humidity there, 47% in Black Diamond. But you can see over at SeaTac, 89%, almost 100% across Seattle, Federal Way, Tacoma, and then Kitsap Peninsula as well. This will all rapidly dry out as we go through the day today because of those winds starting to move into the area. Taking a look at our overall pattern here, you can see we have the ridging that's allowing us to get pretty hot today with some of that offshore flow as well. Then as we go through Thursday, you can see Wednesday, Thursday, here ridging continues. We remain dry. Friday, we also remain dry all the way into Saturday evening, and then we have this troughing moving toward the area on Saturday and into Sunday that is going to bring us some rain this weekend, and then we may have more troughing coming in after that. A little bit of a brief ridge there on Monday. Taking a look at the precipitation forecast, you can see dry all the way through Thursday, through Friday, and then into Saturday. We don't get any rain into western Washington with this frontal system until late Saturday night, and then you can see that rain moves through on Sunday, through the day, and potentially convergence zone going on into the evening hours before we dry out going into Sunday night, and we may have another system moving down soon after that. Taking a look at why this offshore flow is happening today, you can see we have high pressure over parts of Montana and Idaho and Alberta and British Columbia, but we have this low pressure offshore. Obviously, this is not a very strong setup here, so that's why these are very localized winds versus something we can see in the winter when you have a much stronger storm right offshore and the high pressure inland. But you can see that difference in pressure across the Cascades. That is what is causing those gap winds today and that low humidity. And as most of us will see, very hot temperatures for September. So this, you can just imagine kind of that the winds get sucked out of the gaps in the Cascades and out toward this low pressure system out off the Vancouver Island coastline there. Taking a look at the winds on the high-resolution rapid refresh model, you can see why we're highlighting that I-90 corridor there for the strongest gusts, 35 to 45 miles per hour, a few 50-mile-per-hour gusts on some ridge tops. Same thing possible there across parts of the Columbia River Gorge. You can see 37 miles an hour in Portland, some of those mountains to the north of Portland with gusts near 50 to 60 miles per hour possibly, but that's very, very isolated. And then you can see those gap wind gusts 25 miles per hour or so in Seattle and Everett and Whidbey Island. You can see where it blows offshore there. And overall, the mountains and kind of the spine of the Cascades get the strongest gusts of 30 to 40 miles per hour, and that will contribute to fires spreading to the west more than they have at any time, because this is the first time we've really had offshore flow like this. Taking a look at the NAM model, you can see it paints a little bit of a stronger picture with some gusts offshore on the coast as well, 35 miles per hour or so in Hoquiam and Ocean Shores, up to 40 miles per hour from the east in Long Beach and Astoria. There you can see that, and that area does sometimes act as just a really big gap, so you may get some 35 plus mile per hour gusts for Long Beach, Astoria, North Oregon coast. And then you can see how Mount Rainier blocks a big area here, including Tacoma and Puyallup, a lot of Pierce County, but just to the north you have those pretty strong winds. The NAM showing winds gusting up to 35 miles per hour all the way out to Renton, and Seattle getting to 30 miles per hour, with areas along the I-90 corridor getting up to 50 miles per hour. There are 45 at Snoqualmie Pass. You can see Stevens Pass getting some gusts in here as well, as areas along the Cascades get some pretty strong gusts here on the NAM model, up to 50 plus miles per hour in some very isolated areas. You can even see the NAM showing Portland getting up to 46 miles per hour, and some strong gusts there in the gorge over 50 miles per hour as well. And all these winds bring in warm temperatures and dry conditions with very low relative humidity, and we'll look at that here in just a moment. But again, the main concern is for what it's going to do to some of these fires, especially the Wildcat fire right here just east of Mount Rainier, getting potentially gusts up to 40 miles per hour from the east. So that's going to be interesting to see how it contributes to some fire spread today. Taking a look at the temperatures, you can see the areas that are really impacted by that offshore flow. They warm up really quickly today. It's 80 in Seattle by 11 a.m. And then you can see as we go through the rest of the afternoon here, it just gets really hot across the region, much hotter than we've seen for a while in September. You can see 90 degrees for Seattle and Tacoma and Puyallup and Olympia and down toward Chehalis and then Portland as well. And then you can see even on the coast, you're looking in the mid-80s potentially in Grays Harbor County, and then upper 70s or so around parts of the outlet of the Columbia River, upper 70s all the way up toward Quileute, some of that offshore flow. And take a look at the North Sound. The North Sound usually gets a little bit cooler because of some of the exposure to water, but that's not happening today with the wind coming off the Cascades. You can see 88 in Everett, 90 in Arlington, 86 in Mount Vernon, 84 in Bellingham, maybe even a little bit hotter. And then take a look at even Whidbey Island, usually a very cool area with getting up to the mid-80s on the island there, including Camino Island as well. So just a really hot September day. It's somewhat unusual for us to reach 90 degrees in Seattle in September. So that is interesting to see. And something else we can look at quickly as well is that relative humidity. Look at how low the humidity gets here. Let me put this on our extended forecast here. You can see as we go through the day how the gap winds just dry us out. And as we get to about 5 p.m. tonight, humidity across most of the Puget Sound area is between 15 and 30%, which is really, really low. You can see the mountains having pretty low humidity as well, which will help fires to spread even more with that dry air. And you can kind of see that dry air being pulled off the coast right there. So yeah, humidity is down to 15% or so, 15-20% for the Puget Sound lowland. So that is pretty interesting to see. Just remember, please do not burn when it's this hot and this dry. Plus, we have dry offshore winds. It's just very, very much a bad idea to burn anything today. So please don't do that if you can help it. I'm taking a look at 24-hour temperature change. This is the European model, looking at the temperature difference between Monday at 4 p.m. and Tuesday and today at 4 p.m. here. And you can see it's 20 degrees warmer for a lot of places in Western Washington. You can see 15 to 20 degrees warmer than yesterday. But then as we go into tomorrow, you can see how we will rapidly cool back down. And take a look at this. Tomorrow we are going to be 15 to 20 degrees cooler than today. So you can see how today is just a huge anomaly due to that offshore flow. And we can really see that here. If we take a look at this temperature forecast from the National Blend of Models, you can see highs today across the region in the mid to upper 80s, some low 90s expected, even on the coast, some upper 70s to low 80s. But take a look at tomorrow, how we drop way down, highs north of Seattle in the mid to upper 70s, Seattle southward upper 70s, low 80s potentially. Those low 80s most likely east of I-5 and in some of the valleys, and then down around Portland. And then you can see the coast in the mid 60s again. We cool down even further on Thursday with highs in the upper 60s to low 70s, Seattle southward in the low to mid 70s, and then on the coast in the mid 60s. Same thing, low to mid 70s on Friday, and then we cool down into the upper 60s, some areas in the mid 60s on Saturday and Sunday with that system moving into the area. So you can see how today is just such a big anomaly because of that offshore flow warming us up. Now here is a look at the fires. You can see we have these couple in the Olympics and then the fires along the Cascades here. The areas that we're watching most for those gap winds to impact was, of course, the Wildcat Fire because it's very exposed to some of those gap winds. And then the Labor Mountain Fire and the Lower Sugarloaf Fire, watching to see how much smoke these produce as they start to push westward instead of pushing east southeast as they have over the last few days here. So let's take a look at that smoke forecast right now. This is for smoke aloft, and you can see as we go through the day today, a lot of smoke coming off the Sugarloaf Fire and the Labor Mountain Fire as well, maybe a little bit even off the Bear Gulch Fire. Sugarloaf producing a decent smoke plume, potentially pushing north into parts of northwest Washington. You can see a little bit of smoke aloft, especially north of Everett, and that continues. And then on Wednesday, you can see we have another round of not as offshore, not much of an offshore component here, but you can see those winds blowing to the north and slightly to the west there. But again, a little bit of offshore flow, but not all that much, and we will start to switch that back onshore as we go into Friday there and then into Saturday. Taking a look at surface smoke, though, this is something that we need to pay attention to. As these winds blow offshore, we will get some surface smoke into parts of western Washington. So you can see this little bit of surface smoke by 3 p.m. today from the Wildcat Fire blowing across parts of the Puget Sound area. And then look at all this smoke blowing west off the Sugarloaf Fire, and take a look at how that's going to impact air quality. Basically, from Everett northward, you're likely going to get air quality in the moderate or the unhealthy for sensitive groups to unhealthy categories from Everett northward there as we go into tonight and this evening. You can see how that lingers through the night and then pushes out of the area as we get to about 6 to 7 a.m. And then we'll have those fires produce more smoke tomorrow, but the surface smoke does not get as far and doesn't get into the lowlands, and we remain clear. So just remember, areas from Everett northward likely going to have some smoky conditions as we go into tonight. And taking a look at air quality currently, you can see that we don't really have that much. It's pretty good across parts of the Puget Sound area. You can see some of that bad air quality starting to sneak down the US 2 corridor there, and then areas around the fires, of course. Bear Gulch Fire areas along Hood Canal doing pretty bad this morning, and you can see the same around areas north of Wenatchee near the Sugarloaf Fire, not doing very good, and then in northeast Washington as well, some areas of unhealthy air quality. Overall good across the Puget Sound area, but I wouldn't be surprised for this to get down to moderate air quality as we go later through the day. And then you can see again, just looking at the European model, how big of a anomaly today is. High on the ensemble forecast for SeaTac Airport is 89 degrees, and then you can see how much we drop over the next few days, all the way down to 70 degrees by Thursday, and we remain in the low to mid 70s as we go through the remainder of this week. That's more average for this time of year versus this extreme 89 degrees here. So very anomalous day today, very warm and not normal for September. I wanted to advertise my Western Washington Weather merch store again. You can see the link to this in the description. We got some cool t-shirts there, including this tie-dye t-shirt here. Pretty fun stuff there, so you can go and check that out in the description below. And thank you all very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe here to Western Washington Weather. You can even leave a super comment and monetarily support the channel if you are so inclined. And also be sure to follow the Western Washington Weather Facebook group and my Twitter and Blue Sky accounts for the latest updates on everything that's going on today, including with this offshore flow, the dry humidity, the very warm temperatures, and all of that going on, including potential fire spread. So stay tuned to my social media. I'll be trying to post some updates today. And be sure to subscribe to the channel and check out the merch store in the description below. So thank you all very much for watching, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.